loading bodies onto a tank to try to get them out, and they're blown apart.
All hell broke loose.
And they took a serious beating.
The voices you just heard there are Marine Corps veterans describing their memories of the fighting on the first day of the Battle at Hue in the war in Vietnam.
I remember dragging him in a courtyard, and I remember looking down and his legs were gone.
Holy crap, we're going to die.
I'll never forget the noise. You can see people hollering at you. You can't hear what they're saying.
Knowing full well that if he went there, he probably wouldn't be coming back. That's exactly what happened.
I couldn't get Doc Kirkham. I couldn't get to Master Corporal Lucas.
I truly never expected to see my 19th birthday.
We've been telling the story of the Battle for Hue the last couple months. One of the voices you just heard was Marine Corps veteran Richard Cobb. You can find him in episodes 2 and 3 of our series, The Battle That Changed Everything.
We were getting what we thought probably was 50 caliber fire. And you could see pieces of the truck flying off as they were being hit.
Richard Cobb fought with Golf Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. He is one of the few people who fought on day 1 and made it all the way through the 32-day battle without any major injuries. He was with the 2nd Company of Marines into the fight. He was also in the platoon that led the charge to go into the Citadel on the first day before Golf Company Commander Captain Chuck Meadows gave the command to fall back when 2 Marines and a corpsman were shot and killed in the street right in front of one of the Citadel gates.
The volume of fire just intensified. It was incredible. The intensity of the fire was so heavy. It was just mind-boggling.
Richard Cobb survived one of the longest and bloodiest and arguably the pivotal battle of the Vietnam War.
I took my daughter back on another visit with the colonel, and we got on that street. And I'd told her the story about him stepping out, throwing smoke grenades and giving us cover that day. And my daughter walked over to him and gave him a big hug and said, "Thank you for saving my dad." Mm. And it was really a heart ripper for me.
My name is Josh Rowe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. So you made it through the whole battle? You were still fighting at the end of it?
Day 1 to the last.
That's a pretty rare feat.
It is. I've debated in my mind over and over again exactly what we had left, but that first day, well, I'm sure that after the 30 days, I'm probably one of about 5 that started the battle in the 1st platoon and finished it. Everybody else either wounded and medevaced out or killed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went into Hue City that first day as a fire team leader, Lance Corporal, and after that first day, my squad leader was killed, so I was told to take over first squad. And then I was given meritorious combat promotion of corporal. I went from private when I got there in early May, and went from private to Lance Corporal in a few months. Then I went from Lance Corporal to Corporal in a few more months. And I don't know, at 18 years old, I wasn't too keen on the idea at first of having to be in charge of anybody, but Marine Corps teaches, you're supposed to be able to step up if needed.
Right. So take me through the 31st of January, if you could. Where were you that night, the 30th into the 31st? Were you at Phu Bai at that point?
We were in Phu Bai. That morning, we were told to get our troops saddled up. And they said, you just need your 782 gear and your weapons. Said, we're just going to ride on trucks up to Hue City. There was a South Vietnamese general in the Citadel that the word we got, he was receiving sniper fire, and we were going to escort him back to Phu Bai. So we're all pretty psyched up saying, wow, take a truck ride up into the Imperial City and Wade City was supposed to be, we thought to be very secure and pretty upscale. And so we all piled on the trucks and made the trip, which wasn't real far. And first indication we had things weren't the way they were portrayed was we ran into Alpha 11 after crossing the first canal. It's kind of a roundabout there, and we saw a tank that had been destroyed, and Alpha 11 was still engaged in fighting. They had heavy casualties, and I learned later from a good friend who I met years after who was assigned to Alpha 11 that day, and he said at that point, all their commissioned officers had been either seriously wounded or killed, and basically their company was being run by NCOs. Captain Meadows, our company commander, had us all dismount from the trucks and we started a assault across this long causeway, which is best I can remember is about chest high. And there was nothing on either side except wide open fields, and we were getting what we thought probably was 50 caliber fire. And you could see pieces of the truck flying off as they were being hit, and started across this causeway on each side of it, so we'd have some cover down below. But then best of my knowledge, they loaded up all the killed and wounded so far onto the trucks and had them follow. We made it into the MACV compound, fought our way into the center of the city, and left Alpha 11 there. And Captain Meadows talked to the colonel, Army colonel that was in charge of MACV there, and the colonel up in, and I'm getting some of this information from having gone back with Colonel Meadows.
Right.
But he had spoken to the colonel there, and the Army colonel said, what's your mission? And he said, well, I've been ordered to take my company into the Citadel and relieve a South Vietnamese general and bring him back to Phu. And the general, according to Captain Meadows, said, I wouldn't advise that, said there's a lot more going on here than anyone realized. And I'd advise you to just hold in place here. Well, Captain Meadows, according to him, called back to Phu and advised him of the situation. And he was told that he had his orders and to proceed on to the Citadel. So at this point, first and second platoon of Golf 25 started to go across Perfume River Bridge.
To just clarify a point here, what time, so you guys got to the causeway area in that morning. What time did you start the fight to go across the bridge?
Just a few hours after that.
Okay, so early afternoon maybe?
Probably so.
Okay.
And
So walk me through what you're thinking when you're getting that order. Did you have any idea what you're about to go do?
None whatsoever. There was a lot of fire going on, small arms fire and stuff, but not a lot directly to us at that point. But once we started across the bridge, we started getting a lot of fire from across the bridge, the buildings on the other side, all small arms fire at that point. And once we reached the center of the bridge and started down, the volume picked up, and obviously there was a machine gun down at the other end of the ridge firing down the bridge towards us. And we started taking some casualties in, a lot more. And somewhere towards the end of the bridge, two of the guys from second platoon, I was in first, and Barney Barnes and Lester Tully, I found out later their names. I didn't know until later at a reunion, but they took out the machine gun themselves, which probably saved quite a few more people. And once we reached the end of the bridge on the north side, it was my understanding Captain Meadows left second platoon there to secure the bridge, and first platoon took a left turn, went a couple blocks, and then as we were going, I remember it's kind of surreal. There was this giant cowboy cutout cardboard on the side of the road in front of a movie theater. And I'm thinking, this is just kind of out of whack here, looking at cowboys drawing their guns on us while we're in a firefight. But we made it to the street and took a right turn, and at the end of the street, you could see the Citadel gate and the Citadel wall, which is tremendous. It's unbelievable how tall that wall was when you're looking at it. But after about the first two fire teams got down the street with the squad leader, I was in first fire team. Just the volume of fire just intensified. It was incredible. Automatic fire from the above the Citadel gate, and then on top of the walls they had probably AK-47s firing. But at that point, my fire team happened to be approaching a tree on the right side of the street, and that's probably what saved us. And we just kind of did a stack behind the tree, returning fire. The squad leader, Glenn Lucas, Corporal Glenn Lucas, was on the other side, and he was hit early on and didn't know if he was still alive or not, but a corpsman went to him and tried to help, and the corpsman was hit. At this point, Captain Meadows realized there was no way for us to continue on down the street. The volume of fire was too intense, and all the doors of the shops along the street had steel shutters with padlocks on them, so we couldn't even get inside the buildings to take cover. So Captain Meadows started yelling for everybody to pull back, and he stepped out in the middle of the street and started throwing smoke grenades to give us cover. While we recovered all the dead and wounded from the street and got them back around the corner, which we were still receiving fire, but not anywhere near what we were on the street going to the Citadel. At that point, he made the decision to withdraw back across the Perfume River Bridge to MACV. But we were faced with the problem of how to get our dead and wounded back across. We'd taken, if I'm not mistaken, I think the number is somewhere between 40 and 50 wounded or killed just in that little bit of time. So an enterprising young private, can't remember his name, but he managed to commandeer a Vietnamese truck that was parked on the street. And we loaded all the wounded and dead onto this truck, and the people that were still able to fight just gave cover fire and followed the truck across the river. And by the time it got across, it was pretty well riddled with bullets, holes. But before we actually, to back up just a little bit, before we actually got the truck across the river, while we were loading it, either an RPG or a grenade hit the truck and blew quite a few of the people back out of the truck. So we had to reload them again and then made our way back across the river. And once we got back to MACV, sometime during the afternoon, I was told to take charge of first squad, first platoon. And shortly after that, I was told I'd been given a meritorious promotion to corporal. And so I kept that squad for the rest of my time until June of '68 when I left. But I've been asked before, some other people, do you keep in touch with all the guys that were in your squad and platoon? And I said, well, there's a small handful. There's only a few of us that were actually there from start to finish. And I said, we had so many people coming in as relief replacements. Some of them I never even had time to put my squad notebook before they were either wounded and killed or whatever. So, yeah, the ones that I knew the most or knew the best and spent the most time with, I do still stay in contact with. Very close friend, Larry Lucas, who had been my M79 man during the battle, was hit the first day by an AK-47 with a neck wound, was medevaced out, and was back again in about a week. And till he was hit again not long after that. And I think all in all, I think he was wounded 3 times during the battle. But just one little tidbit here that combat humor. When Larry first joined my squad, he used to wear a red bandana around his neck. And I mentioned to him one day, I said, Larry, I said, that's probably not a good idea to have that red bandana there. It kind of draws attention to you when everything else is green. And so he took it off and started tying it to his flak jacket. And of course, first place he got hit was in the neck. And he gave me a hard time about that bandana. He said, maybe if I'd have kept the bandana. Yeah, but no, Larry, I still stay in touch with. He's a very good friend on the West Coast, and I'm on the East Coast. So it's usually by phone. And there's a few other ones that I stay close with. But like I said, there's just so few of us that actually started the battle and finished the battle after 30 days.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a couple questions about all that. First of all, so that night, that first night, that'd be the 31st of January. Did you stay at the compound? Is that where you slept?
We did.
Yeah. So when you're in a safe place, safe relatively, I guess there's nowhere in that place that's probably felt completely safe, but safer than where you were for sure. And you have a chance to kind of decompress and talk about what happened. What was the conversation among the Marines in your, around you as far as like what you just went through?
Well, typical Marines, a lot of it was just small talk, and a lot of it was comparing who got hit and who was no longer with us. And a lot of the conversations was centered around Captain Meadows. We were so grateful that he pulled us back that day. And there's no question, though, we all thought the world of him. He passed away several years ago. And that's the reason I say was, but fantastic leader. And of course, all of our platoon leaders in Golf Company were great. But Captain Meadows, that day when he made a decision to pull us back, instead of, we would have followed him if he said, come on, we're still going, we'd have gone. He was that good of a leader, and we totally trusted his judgment and his leadership. But had he not made the decision to pull us back, would have been wiped out. I made the trip back with him. I believe it was the 50th anniversary of the battle. And he and I walked across the bridge together, and we walked down that street, and we walked through that gate to the Citadel, inside the Citadel. And we got through it, and he turned to me, he said, what do you see? And I said, nothing. I said, it's just a big parade field.
Yeah.
He just smiled, and he said, exactly. He said, would have been wiped out to the man that day if we'd have gone through. And that, I can't say enough good about him. I mean, he's a fantastic leader, and he saved a lot of lives that day. And a little bit other than the battle, I took my daughter back on another visit with the colonel. And we got on that street, and I told her the story about him stepping out, throwing smoke grenades and giving us cover that day. And my daughter walked over to him and gave him a big hug and said, thank you for saving my dad. Mm. And it was really a heart ripper for me.
I talk to Vietnam veterans often who will tell me some version of, I think about the war every day, or I think about some aspect of something they experienced in the war all the time. How often do you think about that day?
Quite often. Quite often.
Does it, how do you process it? How do you think about it today?
Well, that first day, like I say, it started out kind of a happy event for us. We thought we were just going to get to go tour this big, beautiful Hue City and pick up a general and make a trip back. And of course, when we came up on Alpha 11, your brain transitions back from wow, this is going to be a nice break, from patrolling or out in the bush. We just take a little truck ride into a beautiful city to, holy crap, we're going to die.
Oh, gosh.
This is going to be our last day. And of course, once getting into MACV combat, fighting our way down and with Alpha 11, we got a little breather. We got behind some walls for a little bit. So we weren't seeing the tracers fly by us and hearing the snapping sounds of the close rounds. But after that brief breather, so to speak, and then we started across that bridge, and of course the sensation again was, I don't see how we're going to get through this. It's but being Marines, you do what you do, and as long as the captain said keep going, we were going to keep going. And then again, we got across the bridge, and Barney and Lester had knocked out the machine gun. That was a big relief. Like, okay, we got through that huddle. We made the bridge. We made it past that gun. And then we went down that street, and the intensity of the fire was so heavy. It was just mind-boggling. It's so many different thoughts go through your mind. It's but truly, again, and I'm sure most of the guys with me felt the same way. I just didn't see any way we were going to get through that alive. It's the volume of fire, and it was channeled straight down from the tower, straight down the street, with virtually no cover, except for the few of us that there were trees lining that right side. And I think that saved the folks in front of me. But my fire team was fortunate enough to have that tree that we did the stack behind and while we were returning fire. So, but no, it's, I'd been through quite a bit before we even got the way, as far as starting out, just the routine patrols, the ambushes, and the perimeter duty, bunker watch, and that sort of thing. And Operation Essex, we took heavy losses. But Golf 2-5 participated in 4 major campaigns during my 13 months. But after Hue City, we went back to the patrolling and did some bridge security, things of that sort. But I truly never expected to see my 19th birthday. I had just turned 18 when I got to Vietnam, and I've said it many times. To be 76 now, it's amazing to me. I never thought I'd see 19, but the whole battle, the whole Marine Corps experiences, it gave me a whole different perspective on life. It's when I'm having a bad day, I get to think about those days, and I'm thinking, this is petty. This isn't even worth worrying about. And then I'm so grateful that I was able to come home. I've got 4 great kids, terrific wife, had a terrific career, and it's I'm just very fortunate. And I owe most of it to the fact that Captain Meadows, who made Colonel, made that decision that day to withdraw back across the bridge instead of telling us to go through that gate, because we would have followed Captain Meadows anywhere he went.
How long had you been fighting with the captain when you got to Hue? Had he been with you the whole time?
Yes.
So you got there, what, June? Is that when you got to Vietnam?
Probably the first week in May, and I left probably the second week in June of '68.
So you had, like you said, you'd already seen quite a bit of action, and all that was with Captain Meadows. So you knew the leadership he had and the leadership style that he brought, and so being in that firefight obviously was really rough, but you at least knew the people around you and knew you had good leadership in those things.
Well, Captain Meadows wasn't with us from my first arrival in Vietnam. I think he took the company sometime before Operation Essex, and it's been 57 years, so it's a little bit vague in there, but he was with us throughout, I'm pretty sure, Essex and Way City, and probably after Way City.
Yeah.
But no, we completely trusted him, and the people in my squad, the core group that was with me when I took it over, totally trusted them all, and they looked after me, and I looked after them, and of course, good Marines, all Marines are good Marines.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And one note one thing I'd like to say is a lot of the replacements we got during Way City were pulled out of Fubai, some truck drivers, admin people, whatever, from my understanding. And it goes back to the old thing, every Marine is a rifleman first.
Right.
And so a lot of those guys, it was a rude shock from them to go from their other MOS and be thrown into heavy combat as a rifleman again. It's my hat's off to them, because a lot of them had to do some serious transitioning.
Tell me your thoughts on the Citadel itself, actually going in there and seeing it, because it's, as you know, you saw it, you've got the Imperial Palace grounds, and there's a wall around that, and then you've got kind of this, what they call, I guess, the old city or whatever. There's an airfield in there as well, and there's a wall around that, and there's a moat around that. And I don't know if how much you processed at the time in the middle of a hail of gunfire, but just the structure of the thing, with I don't know how many guys you had there that day, 100 or so, maybe a little more, but trying to go into that place, I mean, just hearing that alone sounds daunting by itself. Any thoughts on that? What you actually realize what you're running into?
Oh, it's absolutely the first day to see the walls and the gate, and of course you've seen the picture of the kind of a tower structure over top of the entrance there, with machine guns in there and NVA soldiers on the wall with AK-47s. It was formidable, and there was only one way to go in. That was that entrance there. And of course, you'd still have to get across the moat or go across that one little ridge, which again channeled you in the middle of their fire. But then, having gone back with the colonel and walked all through there, and Barney and some others, it was incredible. Even if we'd have survived that first day to get through the gate and somehow managed to get across the big open area, you still had little walls within walls. And I was amazed, of course, after being there through the whole battle, with what 1-5 was able to do. It's absolutely amazing that they could even get into the Citadel to start with. But they did a heck of a job. It's, my part of it was bad enough, but those guys, it had to be like going into a meat grinder.
A huge thank you to Richard Cobb for telling me his story for our series called The Battle That Changed Everything. It's all about the battle at Way City in the Vietnam War. You can find the full episodes of the series on my YouTube channel, that is at Josh Rowe. Rowe is spelled R-O-E. And thank you for joining me today on Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.